Don't forget to like, follow, subscribe, and turn on notifications so that you will receive alerts when there are new episodes. Go get it.
This is what I tell them. Look, I've been grinding for so long, I wake up and chase my goals. I go out and I go get it. Hot or cold, that's all I know. I don't succeed, then I don't breathe. Success, what does it mean? If I conquer all my goals, then I'm living out my dream. Dig deep, go out and get it. Success Chronicles. Compete until it's finished. Success Chronicles. Go take care of your business. Success Chronicles. It's deeper than just winning. Success Chronicles.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Chip Baker coming to you with another episode of the Success Chronicles. And today we have Miss Dara McKinley on with us, a great lady that has been doing some really neat things to make a positive difference in our world. So thankful to have her on. So first, I just want to say thanks so much for taking the time to interview with the Success Chronicles.
Oh, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Well, let's dive into it. I know off air, we talked about your journey and some of those cool things that you're passionate about and that you love to do. But if you don't mind, just sharing some of that with the audience so they have an idea of who you are and what it is you do.
So I teach forgiveness and I teach a online forgiveness course, but I have a unique twist to it or a bend to it, and that is that I don't define forgiveness as pardoning others. And that definition to pardon others is deeply embedded in the Western mind. So it's really a lot of repetition on my part to help people see and understand what I'm trying to say about forgiveness. I define forgiveness as the ability to apply unconditional love, which is synonymous with God's love, love of Jehovah, love of Yahweh, Allah, however you want to identify with it.
Mm-hmm.
Applying that and being able to identify exactly what needs it. And once somebody learns to do those two skills, pardoning others, having compassion, letting go, ceasing anger, are just organic potential results of forgiveness.
So good. I love that. And if you don't mind, I just like this. Just tell us, if you don't mind, tell us where you're from, like kind of your background, some of that.
Yeah, so I was born and raised in the Bronx, New York, and I'm in my early 50s, and I've lived all over the country. And I basically was born a very spiritual little girl, but there was no reflection of this interest or this skill that I had growing up. And I had a lot of Catholic aunts and uncles who
Mm-hmm.
really wanted me to go to Sunday school and be confirmed, but my mother was very clear that she wanted me to decide what my spirituality was for myself, and she basically raised me to be a seeker, and that's what I went on to do. And in my 20s and 30s, I studied alternative spirituality. I even have a graduate degree in Buddhism and psychology, and I worked as a therapist, and I've worked in all sorts of community mental health milieus. And basically, and I've always, I've heard about forgiveness from my earliest days, just like most of us.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
being someone who is very psychologically and spiritually oriented, I always loved it. I loved the idea. I loved, the promise of it. But whenever I actually tried to use it, it never landed. And so I just thought, oh, it's just some nice spiritual ideal. Like it really doesn't have, and not to be critical, I was just being straightforward about it. Are you there?
I'm here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, something just happened. Um,
I
Here we
can
go.
still hear you on my end.
Okay. Let me see what's happening here. Okay, we're good. So, so it didn't land, and I just thought, okay, it's a lovely spiritual ideal, but it really doesn't have practical legs. Okay, and so I just went on and to study my next thing. I'm a voracious seeker. I'm always studying. I'm always reading. I'm always learning.
That's awesome. So good. Well, what are three things you've accomplished in your life that you're proud of?
Well, I'm proud of identifying a user-friendly forgiveness model. And, just to kind of take the my forgiveness journey a little deeper for your listeners. So in my early 30s, I got into a business relationship with people who I would ultimately be incompatible with. And the
Hmm.
business took off, but and we kind of endured each other for as long as we could. And then about 5 years into it, the whole thing fell apart and I lost my share of the business. And so I was like, okay, Dara, you've been studying psychology and spirituality for 2 decades. You have the skills to get through this. And so, go focus on gratitude, lean into your significant relationships, recreate your life, find joy, find happiness,
Hmm.
process your emotions, all the things that I had been learning about my entire life. And I did all those things. And 3 years after that incident happened, I was a lot better, but I still noticed, and this would happen when I was like folding the laundry and washing the dishes, I still noticed a negative narrative looping in my head that was resentful, to be totally honest,
Hmm.
and wanted like some form of justice. So this kind of paralleled this mystery illness that I started to get. The doctors couldn't figure out what was wrong with me. I had two very young children, and it was just basically the perfect storm where I whipped out my spiritual skills, my spiritual antenna, and kind of implored the universe for a sign. And the message I got back was figure out how to forgive. And so I got online and I typed in how to forgive, and 99.9% of what came up was why a person should forgive. And there was nothing about how. And I'm just a very practical person. I think this is very common in people who identify as spiritual but not religious. We're very logical. We really want things to make sense. We don't want to believe something because someone told us to believe it. And so I was like, wow, there's no directions about how to forgive. Like, I really need to figure this out on my own. And so I thought, okay, Dara, figure it out. You've been studying psychology and spirituality your whole life. Think about this. 3 weeks later, I felt an inner peace I hadn't felt in years. And I had two thoughts that would change my life. The first one was, wow, forgiveness is for real. Like, this is a legitimate healing modality. Like, I am completely impressed with these results. And the second thought I had was, and that wasn't pardoning. Why does everybody say forgiveness is pardoning? I would go on, I didn't think anything of it at the time, except that I had gotten over something very difficult. But I would go on to, this is when social media now, is huge, and you can kind of watch what the mainstream narratives are in the culture. And I started to see, like, oh, wow, this pardoning definition is actually an obstacle for a lot of people. Considering how popular the teaching of
Sure.
forgiveness is and how we're hearing about it from our earliest days, if you think about how many people aren't forgiving, right? It's huge.
Yeah, no doubt.
So that's when I realized, I was like, oh, I have something that could potentially help these people out. So I started teaching it. So that's the first thing I'm very proud of in terms of my successes, is that I figured out a very user-friendly, practical model of forgiveness that's effective. And then the second thing is that I'm very proud of is that right after the pandemic, I just dropped myself into Italy with not knowing anyone. And I now have a really cool group of friends there. And so that I felt like that was a very brave thing to do. And I now have like this huge international connection. And I know that a lot of people have that dream of like going somewhere and establishing themselves in a foreign land. And I just want to
Hmm.
be an example that it's doable.
That's so cool.
And then the third thing is, I'm my whole life is healing and emotions and recovery. So my other like main interest is that I've been in my industry. I always say that like grief, like what happens to a person after they lose someone they loved, is kind of the Mount Everest of our industry. So I've always had a very strong curiosity for the process of grief, and this has been lifelong. And I realize now that in studying it, that there's there's grief and then there's compounded grief, meaning that there's the sadness that we feel, and then there's the things that we do that kind of inflame the whole journey and make it really, really hard. And so that's this other thing that I teach people is I teach people like how to walk the grief journey. And there's no getting out of the grief journey. I can never like cure anybody of that. We all have to just go through it when the time comes, but how to go through it in a way that's not unnecessarily inflamed.
So good. I
Thank
love
you.
that. Yeah, yeah. Well, just hearing you discuss your journey, um, hearing you discuss the things that you're proud of, I would consider that to be hugely successful. So let's hit on success. What is your
Thank you.
definition? What is your definition of success?
Um, my definition of success is to live in alignment with your unique soul. I think every soul is unique. And I think that if a person can really uncover all those unique facets and live a life aligned with that, I think that's an incredibly successful life, and one that, when it reaches its full arc and is, on the crossing over part, like that person will cross over in peace. And that's what I hope for myself. And, what I hope for all human beings is that when you cross over, you think, yeah, I did everything I could to be who I truly was.
Awesome. Well, as we
Thank you.
close, I'd love for you to get an opportunity to share with the audience where they can go follow you and check you out and show you some love with all of the amazing things you have going on.
Howtoforgive.com, and that's what I typed in that fateful night when I was trying to figure out how to forgive. I typed in how to forgive, and a couple years later I checked it out, that domain, and it was just sitting there waiting for me.
I love that. It was sitting there waiting for you. That's cool. Well, again, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to interview with the Success Chronicles. Truly appreciate it, and I wish you continued success.
Thank you for doing the show, Chip. Thank you for having me. It was great to be here.
Awesome, awesome. Very welcome. And thank you guys for checking out this episode. We'll see you next time. God bless. Go get it.